So going through the CADIC experience, I thought I am all healed from these things. I'm going to go into this training and I am going to just evolve and I'm going to learn this elevated consciousness, and I'm going to be working with people who are doing the same thing. And I just a few-day workshop. I had no idea around the level of vulnerability and self-reflection that I would do. But when it got to the outward orientation and a lifelong process, especially the outward orientation, that was really difficult for me. So I did show up vulnerable. I did a lot of self-reflection where I thought I had gotten over many things, but the outward orientation was very difficult. And it said something in terms of my ecological model about trauma and how it had impacted me. And so as we move forward, I'll discuss that. And so, you know, in a workspace in particular, which is the story I shared, and I want to kind of talk about that outward orientation. You're asked to share an experience that you've had in the previous steps of elevated consciousness. And I was very emotional about it. I shared about it. I thought I was over it in many ways. And I guess I was over the incident, but I had internalized so many things. And so for me, I was like, well, is this real? Is this racism real? Like, is it my skill set? Do I deserve it? Like, I'm just screwing up. And so if I just get better, if I just show up better, like sometimes you aren't on time, maybe if you come on time more, maybe if you do all these things, right, technical things, then your work will be seen, you'll progress. And so at the end of the day, I think when I think about that process, I always, for so long, even though I was outraged, I also felt like there's something you could have done better because you know you should have been better. But racism is real at the end of the day. It's kind of like reassessing, you know, if you would have worn something different that day. Did I meet the standard in the workplace? I absolutely did. Was my work quality and above quality work? It absolutely was. But these experiences put into my mind that maybe I was not good at my job. Maybe I was an imposter, right? And then even when I went to human resources for support, and I had evidence in terms of emails and letters, there still wasn't support. There are these laws that exist, de jure, right? These policies. But in the space that I was in, the fact of racism, the fact of discrimination also trumped that. And another thing that trumped that in this particular case was, I think, prior to the final incident of, you know, feeling discriminated against and, you know, everything happening, within a year at that particular agency, most women of color who were advocates had been completely removed from administration. And so I didn't have a sounding board or anybody to talk to. All I had was human resources. And I knew how to strategize because I've been in the work environment for a long time. So I was able to leave that space protected in terms of having fiscal security, but still being very damaged around what happened. And so when we had to do this outward orientation exercise in the elevated consciousness, and we got to this part, I was like, this is a trick. Because you're asking me to think about how somebody hurt me so bad. And years of having these experiences and somehow, like, you know, figure out their humanity, which was very difficult. But pushing me to do that helped cultivate my own humanity. It helped me see that, yes, racism is real and that this can be still true. De facto does rule the day, but I still can change my environment. It can be both and. It's not that I have to push back against racism. I'm actually doing that every single day. And I'm acknowledging it in the space that it's in and the things that cause me trauma. But I can also affect my environment by using the strategies around CADIC, around conscious ambassadorship and trauma-informed care. I can move past that. And so the truth of it is you can't hide. Those experiences left me feeling like I wasn't good enough, like my work wasn't valuable. And I was showing up in spaces like that. Like I was starting to show up in workspaces really desperate. Like, what do you think? All the time, like not really understanding my capacity to work and do good work. But looking at that experience and figuring out that I still had trauma issues that were actually impacting how I showed up allowed me to be who I was in the space and be assured in who I was in the space. Then it was up to everybody else around me to figure their stuff out. Yes, I wanted to understand and be vulnerable. And I show up in that way. It's okay because I'm safe, I'm secure in who I am. It allowed me to do self-reflection, continually do self-reflection, but it also allowed me to see the humanity in people and at the same time move past that and not ask for that validation. And that is what the process did to me. It let me know I didn't have to validate myself through other people, one, but two, that I had the capacity to, in real time, create my own environment. And so I was able to go on and create my own firm with 3 other consultants. So I am a Young consultant. I work with other consulting firms who own their own brands. But from this, I had the courage to create a space that let me believe that life and work values can coexist. This concept of both and, not either or. I can have both the challenge against systems that are harmful, but I can also show up in those systems and be assured in who I am and respect other people's humanity. To set up boundaries. I was so willing to take anything, right? I have boundaries around workspace and expectations and expect that people I work with are allies in a very real way, not just lip service, that they've been allies. They've been willing to make those sacrifices for values that they espouse around equity. I choose myself. I realize that I have value. I use this process in KDIC to address challenges in real time. Like, hey, let's take a look at this. And using the KDIC experience, like what is really happening here? And really, especially the tool of self-reflection. And this isn't a fairy tale. Like, it's not like, oh my God, I opened up my own firm and I'm living happily ever after. I have been in an economic deficit for maybe 3 or 4 years. And it's been very challenging. But the one thing that hasn't been challenging is going to work every morning. And the belief that the work that I do matters, the belief that I'm with people who are willing to sacrifice and support me in the work that I do. So it's not an easy thing, but I definitely have used this experience to stop hiding from bad feelings around myself that happened in previous experiences and using it to create my workspace and my work environment. It has become not ideological, but practical in how I move forward in the work that I do. I want to say thank you to everyone who decided to join this conference and listen to my story around the very important value of KDIC and elevated consciousness and how it's improved how I show up in the workspace and how I continue to move forward in my career.